football coach, man, legend, icon, Grant Teaff with us, Sick on 365 Radio and 365 Sports, and joins us here on this early part of the 2022 year. I know it's been a while since Baylor played, won the Sugar Bowl, finished with more wins than any team ever. Your thoughts about how they finished the year and they didn't settle? They weren't just happy to get to the Big 12 title or even win that, but they wanted more.
Well, of course, that is the sign of a very fine coaching staff that carried them through those periods of days when they were off and waiting for the bowl game and the preparation of the bowl game and then the execution. That all goes to your coaches, and then the determination of the players, that they wanted to make this a very special year, which they did. And, when you have that combination and you have the talent that Baylor has, you're going to be pretty darn successful. And you got to have a little good luck to go along with it these days because everybody's pretty good. And but we've got a terrific coaching staff. I think Aranda is special. He's one of the finest men you'll ever want to know. Plus, he's a tremendous football coach.
He seems to be very unique, and sometimes he'll quote. Who knows? Yesterday he quoted a famous poet and a writer at the convention. He's also mentioned children's books as an analogy on how things work and struggles or adversity. Is he about as unique as you've ever seen or heard?
Yeah, no doubt about it, and I think that's the mark of an individual, that they can be unique and still be very, very successful in a game that's totally not unique. It's blocking, tackling, not having penalties, all of those things that it takes to make up a great team. Plus, on the college level, you got to be able to know what kind of players to recruit and then be able to get them. And so my hat's off to Dave Aranda and his entire staff. They've just done a marvelous job, and what a fine representation he is of Baylor University.
It seems like, Coach, that he has complete control of the football program. Mack Rhodes is obviously heavily involved with what he does, but that Dave knows what he wants, that he has the ability to make what changes. You obviously remember what he did immediately after 2-7 with the offensive changes with Jeff Grimes and Eric Mateos, and brought in a new wide receivers coach from Clemson, that he is never satisfied, and he doesn't just get complacent. What does that say about him?
Well, that's the mark of a great individual in any enterprise, whether it be coaching or business or the industry and world of industry. That's just a great mark. Never satisfied, always trying to improve and get better. And along the same, while you're doing that, be the kind of person that moms and dads out there that you're having to recruit can admire and respect you, and that you can be the kind of leader that can lead a coaching staff and be complete control when necessary, and give control when it's appropriate. He just has all those unique characteristics, and I just think the world of him as a man, and certainly as a football coach.
Your daughter Lane shared me a picture that she had. It showed Aranda when he took that big bath, the Gatorade bath after the win, and he never flinched. He kind of clenched his fists. He never flinched, and it's just kind of that, man, like what the emotions or lack of them when they stopped Oklahoma State to win the game.
Smoak, I think that's a very good representation of what I'd call a man of steel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do not flinch.
Do you remember the first time anybody poured Gatorade on your head?
Oh, gosh, yeah. I sure do. And it happened to be very cold, I think, that day, which was down toward the end of the season. It may have been first time Baylor had beaten Texas in a jillion years, and it may have happened then. I don't remember the exact date, but it was cold weather, I can tell you that.
Baylor is accumulating. You had some dogs on defense. Everyone knows about whether it's, Mike Singletary or whoever you had, Thomas Everett and Van McElroy, names like you had a bunch, but you had dogs inside on the defensive line. You had some dudes, and they are now not only having dudes, but they're now replacing them, and then some of them are coming back. What about the depth do you think that Coach Aranda is building on that defensive front?
Well, you have to have depth. You might can get by without it for a little while, but eventually on this level of play, you've got to have depth, and you've got to have quality depth, not just bodies to fill in to positions. And that's the real key of successful programs across the country, particularly those that are well known, and you know who they are. They can recruit year after year after year, so they build up that depth that they have to have, so that if a problem happens where you get 2 or 3 injuries, then they've got young people that may be just as good or better than the ones that they have playing. So, that's the real key to continued success, and that's what we're talking about. Getting to a point where year after year, Baylor University is picked at the top beginning of the year and ending close to the top at the end of the year.
You saw what Georgia did late Monday night, beat Alabama. It was kind of a game that took a while to get going, and then all of a sudden both started to have some pretty good plays, and Georgia wins it. Kirby Smart beats his former coach, and Georgia's first title since Vince Dooley in 1980 with the great Herschel Walker when they beat Notre Dame. What do you think that meant for Coach Dooley?
Oh, it meant a tremendous amount, because he and Donnell and I and his wife Barbara, we've been friends through all these years and still remain so. And he loves those Georgia Bulldogs, and he is atypical of a Georgia Bulldog with that good old Southern drawl of his.
Yeah.
He's very typical and loved and deeply respected over there in Georgia and throughout the Southeast, I might add. And it had to be very pleasing to him, as it was to a lot of folks, I'm sure, across the country that supported Georgia.
I don't know if anyone loves college football as much or more than you do. I know that's what you did forever after you coached the game, because of you were in charge of the AFCA. My question to you is, college football right now has a lot going on, Coach. They've got the transfer portal that's wide open. They have the NIL. They have so much that's going on right now. Coaches leaving mid-season because of the early signing period. If you could for one day wave a magic wand, what would you do?
Well, I tell you what, it's gotten a little bit, in my opinion, out of control, and I would try to put some controls back on it. Logical, common sense, good, solid, sound controls. I think the transfer portal is something that is bad for college athletics in general. But, because, part of what you learn in football is the ability to stick with it. And it may take 1 or 2 or 3 years of sticking with it. And then all of a sudden, you're that top guy out there in your position, and you're playing on a championship team that's been built. Well, I fear that this easy way out is going to change a lot of that. If I'm, go somewhere and I'm not happy the first semester or the second semester about where I'm playing and what the future looks like for me, I'll just change. And that's not teaching the things that I believe that we should teach. On the other hand, people will say that, young people ought to have the right to choose, and I understand some of that, but it doesn't totally go along with the things that you try to teach in football. That stickability, make it where you are, succeed, and continue to try.
Let me ask you this. You have been a part of many committees and led many of them, but it's kind of, I've always wondered this. If you're stuck, whoever's making decisions, whether it's in sports or whatever, politics, or as you mentioned before, just business, if you have people who are given the task to fix something or to solve something and they can't do it, does that mean you have the wrong people, or are they too selfish to do what's best for the overall picture rather than what's important their school or for them?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question, and we don't have enough time for me to answer it right now because I've been in the middle of it for a good portion of my life, and I've seen the genuine caring concern that men and women have in administration and as head coaches in meetings of trying to make the right decision that's best for the student athlete. Doesn't always come out that way in many cases, but I do believe this, that the NCAA and those committees underneath them are run by solid, sound, caring, very smart, football-wise, in our case, of football committees, of knowing what they're doing and what they believe at the time is the best thing for the student athlete and the game. And I've always, in every committee I was ever in charge of, the first thing I said is that we do what's right and best for the student athlete. Not what's best for the school in particular, but what is best for the student athlete. And if committees continue that, and I think most of them certainly will and do, you're going to always come out on a good, solid side.
Coach Teaff, a couple more things. We mentioned David Aranda, philosophical, what he's leaned on, who he's quoted. You, I know, because of the history of your family and the Native Americans and the Indian nation, you're an historian when it comes to that because of how it tied into your family. Did you ever preach things or say things you learned from studying the American Indians?
Oh, sure, certainly. Yeah, there's a lot of things in life that parallel the teachings of some of the great nations, Indian nations across America. And, they were individuals that lived in the wilderness and on the frontier and had to make do with what they had. They couldn't run down to the hardware store and get what they needed. And so that's the thing that's always fascinated me, is about their ability to not only lead their particular tribe or nation, as sometimes referred to, but also to be creative and create the tools that they had to have to be successful in life, just survive.
One more thing. Coach Fredenberg retired, won a national championship. You know, if anyone, how dominant he was in his time at University of Mary Hardin Baylor, taking that from day one. Your thoughts about the career he ended up with?
Well, I brought Pete in out of high school on my staff at Baylor, and he turned out to be exactly what I thought he would be. An excellent coach. Coach Fredenberg is down to earth. There's nothing fancy tied into his approach to the game. It's good, solid, rock correct, and he's just a tremendous guy with a wonderful family. His wife is a tremendous coach's wives and leads his staff's wives, every year. It's just been a great pleasure for me. I brought him out of high school, and to see him achieve the success he's achieved on the college level.
College football, we got to wait a long time for it to get back to playing again in August, but it was one heck of a year. Coach, thank you very much. Enjoy the early part of winter, and I hope to see you very soon.
Okay, good to talk to you.
Grant Teaff, the Hall of Famer, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
All right, we are now joined by one of the most dynamic